Hello lovely humans, welcome back to my channel. Today's video is going to be a Q&A from some of the members of the master plan. Now, before we launch into this video, I do want to say at the top very quickly, we have decided to extend our Cyber Monday deal. I'm going to link it right up here for you to check out because I realized that we didn't tell you all about Black Friday coming up for the master plan. It is what, 150 bucks, just under $150 for lifetime engagement access. And this Q&A that you're about to see is from one of our live calls that I do every single month with you guys. Wedding planning is hard and it's stressful, and right now you're scrounging around on the internet hoping to find answers and piece them together into some semblance of an order of how you're supposed to be doing this. Instead, let me invite you to join the master plan where I will be with you live every single month to answer these questions. There's a lot of information out there on the internet, a lot of great information. I provide some of that. Information. You can choose if it's great or not. But to have a wedding planner in your pocket with everything you need online to answer your questions in real time every single month is literally invaluable. This is the only time of year that we offer this deal, so please feel free to check it out. If you missed the card, I will leave it linked down below. And if you want to see what our master plan phone calls, Q&A calls look like, go ahead and keep on watching. My future husband and I have started planning for our wedding October 2024. Kind of secretly. Oh, okay. Thank you for letting me in on the secret, Miss Mary. We've been together for over 6.5 years. Everyone in his family asks us when we might get married or why he hasn't proposed already. We have already secured a date, venue, catering already, but I do not have an engagement ring yet as my partner was laid off due to film industry strikes. Oh, Mary, I'm so sorry. Is it crazy that we started planning a wedding without the grand proposal / ring on my finger? I'm just so excited and I wish I could share my excitement with family and friends. Oh, Mary, I want to hug you. No, it's not crazy. If the engagement has happened, or, maybe it's not the grand proposal, that's okay. That doesn't lessen your love. That doesn't lessen the epicness of what your wedding day is going to be. You guys still love each other just as much as if he had physically put a ring on your finger, right? I am wearing a fake engagement ring because mine got lost when we were planting trees. So does that mean that my love story is any bit less? No, absolutely not. Plus, I get to switch it up and I can wear gold when I'm wearing gold jewelry for the day. I would say maybe take a look at what is holding you back from sharing with your family and friends that you are engaged. Is it because you are waiting for a ring on your finger? Is it because you're worried about judgment or feedback or criticism? And only you would probably know the answer to that. I would feel that way for sure. I would feel like I don't want to tell anybody because they're going to judge me because I can't be official without a ring. That's where my mind would go. But as a professional in the field, I can easily go, that's ridiculous. Absolutely not. What I would say is you might run into issues. I mean, you clearly haven't already. You have a date, a venue, catering, etc., right? But there might be some vendors that are like, wait, so are you actually engaged or no? Because I've had people who contact us who are not actually engaged and wanting to look at contracts and wanting to start having the booking conversation. And for some vendors, that's like, call me when you're actually engaged because I don't want to save a date for someone who's not actually going to go through with it. The only thing that I would think here could potentially be an issue from a wedding planning perspective, but sit with why you feel like you can't share with family and friends. Sit with that. Maybe find someone who you can share it with and offload some of this because this is exciting. This is super exciting. I mean, how many people do you want to tell about the venue or the caterer or what you have planned already? How many people do you want to share this Pinterest board with? I think that surrounding yourself with your family and your friends in this instance in life, it makes a lot of sense. If you are waiting until you're more financially flush to purchase a ring and are waiting to find the right one, there's prudence in that. There's 100% prudence in that. So I see where you're coming from. Sit with that, kind of figure out if it makes sense to tell anybody. I think you should. I think you should let people celebrate alongside you. But of course, take your time and get there when you get there. Should I wait until I have a date for my wedding before asking my wedding party to be in my wedding party? No, you don't necessarily have to. Just bear in mind that if you're like, just reserve the entire month of October, that they're going to be like, I won't be able to do that. Right? But when you ask someone to be a part of your wedding party, it almost feels as though you are affirming the level and the depth of your friendship, right? That's the honor of what you're doing there. I am obsessed with you. You have been so important in my life. You've been instrumental in my growing up, in college, in blah, blah, blah. In this part of my relationship, I could not picture getting married without you by my side. Will you be in my wedding party? Now, what you might run into is if they've got like scheduling issues, they might have to end up saying no. But what we're really, truly establishing here is the depth and importance of your relationship. So if it ends up being a no because you don't know the date yet, that's okay, right? As long as we view it that way. It's not like, oh, I have to have an even side. So if you say no, I'm going to go find somebody else. Which people still do, and that's perfectly fine. But the point of what I'm saying here is the date doesn't matter. The affirming of the relationship does. And if you can focus on that, then hopefully everyone can make it to the date. Although I don't think that it is a bad idea to wait
after I say all that, if you are considering a date that is 2 years in the future, a lot of stuff can happen in 2 years. So I would say maybe wait until you're at the year mark, just in case. Because yeah, and also be prepared to get a lot of questions from those you asked to be in your wedding party repeatedly. If they're like, have you picked a color? Am I looking at dresses yet? Are we doing bachelorette? Can you explain all this to me? What's happening here? Are you getting married here? Are you getting married there? And because now they feel responsible and they have to learn this information, obviously, to be a supportive member of the wedding party and show up on time and wear the right clothes. If you're within the year mark and you haven't selected a date, I think it should be fine. If it's 2 years or above, wait. Just wait a little bit. When should I start talking to day of coordinators if I don't have a wedding planner? Great question. They are typically booked about a year in advance, much like photography and videography is. However, I have been booked as last minute as 3 months in advance. So what you can do, it depends on, again, so the whole point of today's chat is talking about priorities. It depends on what the priority level is for a coordinator. If you just want to plug that hole, right? If the dam is leaking and you're like, I'm going to put a coordinator right there, then it feels less important than like, I want to make sure that I have a coordinator who understands my vision and my desires and sees my design, right? And can bring it to life. Someone who can handle setting up all of my DIYs, someone who I can just tell my information to, and they can create a timeline for me, and I can just pass it all off and not worry about it. Those are two very different emotional responses. And this is why priorities matter. This is why it's of the utmost importance that you discuss priorities with your fiance or sit down and think about these things. Because if the first one, if you're like, I just need a planner or like a coordinator to just make sure nothing gets lit on fire, okay, that the timeline is run well. Now, I think they should be prioritized higher than that, but obviously I'm a little bit biased because this is what I do for a living, but I also know what we do. However, I'm not here to tell you what your priorities should be. If that's where a planner is for you or coordinator is for you, then I would say you probably can take your time finding somebody. You don't have a high level of emotional attachment to their success rate. You just want them to get the job done, okay? If there is a higher emotional attachment to their success rate or to what you would like for them to do, you need to give yourself more time to research. So that's why I tend to say, if you're going for just a day of coordinator, still look for them at the year mark, unless for any reason you're like, low priority, doesn't matter. Then you can push it to the back burner until you're available to do so. But in the same way that we talked about photography and having that bond and making sure you're comfortable in front of their camera, your photographer, your videographer, and your wedding coordinator are going to be very lovingly in your face on your wedding day. So you have to like the sound of their voice. You have to like interactions with them. You have to like who they are. You have to feel comfortable with them. You know, I have helped many a bride go to the bathroom. I've helped a bride change outfits. Okay. It's totally fine. I love being trusted at that level. That's fantastic. But you're probably not going to want to do that with a person where you're like, just fill a role. Just make sure my timeline is done effectively, right? That feels lower priority. But if you want the person who's going to be in your face very lovingly, like, hey, are you ready for the next step? And not be annoyed by the sound of their voice, then you need to spend some time looking for the right fit for you and for your fiance. If I have a coordinator, when should they jump in and start collecting information for the day of festivities? This depends on their package, and depends on how much time you get in their package. I tend to have my only meeting with day of coordination clients about 4 to 6 weeks in advance. So about 8 weeks in advance, I will send over some sort of something, be like, hey, fill this out. Let me know about your vendors. Sounds great. We're going to talk in the next 2 to 4 weeks. Here's some information that I need from you. And so if we could have that ready at the 4-week point, right? So 4 weeks before your event, that's fantastic. So we have the conversation. In the next 2 weeks, I write the timeline and I get that sent over to the couple for them to approve and then send that out. So at 8 weeks, contact. Hey, I need all your vendors' information. Send it over here, plug it in the spreadsheet, or if you already have it typed up somewhere else, just send it to me and I'll plug it in. 6 to 4 weeks in advance, that's usually when we have our final details meeting. It's about 2 hours long. That's when I glean as much information from them as possible. I have a Google Drive folder. They can upload contracts. They can upload anything they want me to take a peek at. And then 2 weeks in advance is when I send the timeline to them. And once they go, yep, looks good. You spelled everyone's names correctly. Timeline seems good to us. Then I send it to all of the vendors. So that is how our pacing looks. There are some coordinators who offer multiple appointments and multiple meetings for just day of or month of coordination, which if you haven't heard those two terms, I use them synonymously. No one really shows up for just day of coordinating, right? They have to do some pre-work. So I tend to call it month of coordination because as we're talking about the time frame, I usually start working with them about a month out at the very latest or the very closest to their wedding. So day of coordinator, month of coordinator, synonymous basically. You do not want someone to just show up on your wedding day and be like, yeah, I'm here. Great. Do you have like a timeline or something? No. So when should they? Depends on their package. If they're anything like mine, hopefully that pacing kind of helps explain things for you. Unless they have more meetings with you, and then you might start meeting with them 3 months in advance. Who decides where pictures are taken? The couple or the photographer? We are having a winter wedding, and I don't want to make my bridal party freeze outside just for a picture, but I'm not sure there's a good spot inside. So I'm wondering who usually makes that decision. If you're going outside, your photographer is going to be cold too, right? Everyone's going to be muscling through the same temperature. So I would think likely that your photographer, if they choose to take you, wait, hold on, answer the question first. The photographer will probably choose in this scenario because they'll know the lighting, they'll know what their camera is capable of, what their machine is capable of better than you will. So if you're like, this is great over here, they're like, the lighting is awful. Or like, I can't get people to move in here. I can't, this won't work for what I have. This can be a give and take. So this can be the photographer's like, hey, I found this spot. Are you okay with it? Or they might say, hey, I found the spot. We're taking photos here. So as far as a winter wedding is concerned, no. Oh, hold on. Wait, rewind just a sec. However, a photographer should always be open to suggestions if there is a place that you really like, or something that you're attached to or want to get photos in. A photographer should be open to hearing those. And if it doesn't work for whatever reason, they should be willing to explain to you why that will not work. Maybe the drive's too far. Maybe the lighting isn't right. Maybe you can't fit your entire family into this area for family photos. Whatever happens to be, they should be providing you with professional feedback to let you know why that is not going to be the case. But when in doubt, the photographer is the artist here, and the photographer is the person that you're paying to make these decisions. So ideally, they'll make these decisions for you so you don't have to make every single one. Again, if you're attached to something, communicate and they can communicate back. As far as being outside for a winter wedding, I don't think they're going to freeze for just a picture. Again, your photographer is also going to be out there and also going to be cold and cognizant of that, right? Everyone's going to start to get red runny noses outside, which is not super easy to edit off of people's faces. So it shouldn't be an extended period of time. If this is a concern, go directly to your photographer and talk to them about it. In fact, I highly recommend go to your photographer and talk to them about it. I've been hearing that a wedding video isn't that important. It's good to have, but shouldn't be a big part of your budget. What are your thoughts? All about priorities, baby. All about priorities. I am obsessed with my wedding video. I have watched it multiple times. There are people in my wedding video that are no longer here, and that's all I have video-wise of them, and I don't know why that's all I have. So that's precious to me, and that's irreplaceable. Because Dave, my dear friend with Amari Productions, he's a wedding videographer. He's like, photography is great. A photographer will show you the look on the groom's face as he's waiting for his bride to walk down the aisle. Videography will show you him bouncing on the balls of his feet because he's in so much anticipation. So some people are like, hard pass, not a priority. Great, good. Make that decision, move forward. Don't worry about spending a couple grand on a videographer. I have never had a client say, I regret videography though, ever. Especially for stories like mine now, where like we have lost people since then, and the memory of them at our wedding day is something we can literally look back on, and that's important to us. So a lot of people say wedding video is not important. That's why priorities come into play here, and that's why this has to be the filter through which you run almost every single wedding decision. Is it that important to me? Is it that important to my fiance? Does it fit with our vibe, our vision, our parameters, our priorities? Run them through those questions before making a decision like this. So if you're like, hey, that strikes a chord with me, I really don't think I want to pay for videography, don't. Absolutely not. But very few people. In fact, I don't know if I've ever heard someone regret getting video. Ever. We are having a dry church wedding and we've got a 10K budget. I want to use the money we saved by using our church to hire the church's coffee trailer, cute, to serve coffee during what would usually be the cocktail hour. Do you think this is a good idea? Want to limit the options so people aren't spending forever making up their mind on what the drink they want. What do you recommend limiting the options to? I'd say 3-4 options. Okay, so something sweet, something decaf, something normal coffee, and tea. But tea's easy. Tea can even be like a carafe self-serve type situation. So that's where I would go. Sweet, decaf, normal coffee, and or latte, Americano, whatever that happens to be. And then tea. If you want to expand from there, you can add a fifth, and it could be your drink and your fiance's drink, and then those 3 other options. And those 2 drinks I would say would replace the sweet one. What is the best time to incorporate a game, interrupt the dancing, or have it start off the dancing? I'm looking to replace the bouquet/garter toss with something far more fun. Got this. Okay. So I'm going to explain the methodology behind it because I love teaching you guys why we make this decision instead of just telling you here's what it is, because I think you need to be empowered to make this choice. Usually what happens is it's dinner, toasts, perfunctory dances, father-daughter, mother-son, couple dance, and then the dance floor opens. It goes for about an hour, and that's when you have cake cutting, bouquet toss, and garter toss. Because people have been dancing for an hour, and they're like, whoo doggy, like I need to sit down. I did not prepare myself for these shoes, and I need a hit of sugar. That's when the cake is served. That is the most traditional pacing we see in this day and age. What we have here, though, is the bouquet toss, the guard toss, and the cake cutting all take about 5-ish minutes a piece. A little bit less, a little bit more, depending on moving people around. So it gives everyone a nice reprieve, and kind of after an hour, they can kind of dip into it, right? They can just like, woof, we've been going for a really long time. However, notice that that's 3 different activities and about a 15-minute break. The hard part about incorporating just a single activity, like a game, is a DJ works really hard to build up that energy. And if they don't have to stop it for bouquet toss, garter toss, cake cutting, etc., it might be better to then move those at the beginning and kick that off before open dancing happens. So you could actually do this before toasts. So while people are finishing up eating, you can start the game. Depends on how interactive it is. After toasts, so everyone's attention is on you before you do your first dance. After your dances, you can do a bunch of options at the beginning, especially if it's just a game. Depends, again, how interactive this is. If you still want to do it later on in the evening, you totally can. Just make sure to pair it with something else, or make sure the game is more than like 3 minutes, because it'll really mess with the vibe. I know it sounds silly, but like it's almost like a record scratch when you stop. So at least if you're going to do that, give people enough time to decompress and get ready to go back on the dance floor, instead of going from a straight banger, of a song into, okay, we're going to play a game. Everyone sit down, get out your pencils. You know what I mean? And then we're going to get back into it. No, come back to the dance floor. You have to kind of ease into and out of these different moods. All right, we've got one more question or comment that was submitted. If anyone else in here would like to send one in, please feel free to do so. I'm having a hard time finding where I can add personal touches to the ceremony/reception. Have there been any unique touches that have stood out to you at the many weddings you've been a part of? Yes. Okay. I like when people take something normal and tweak it to be something them. So if that means that the table numbers are, one of my favorites was the couple out in Hawaii, the groom is a pilot. And so the tables were actually city names of all the places that they had traveled to together. So like Tokyo, New York City. So, but it was cool because it meant something to the couple. And so everyone was like, oh, what is this? So on their seating chart, there was an explanation. And at the table, I believe there was also photos of them at the location. So that's sweet, right? That's super personal, and it replaces something that's already existing. So it's not like we're inventing new entertainment or new ways to design or incorporate personal touches. We're simply tweaking what is already there into a personal touch. That could also be, if you do menus, you can make them silly. If you do any signage, make them punny. You know what I mean? We had a couple that put out a sign that said, if you're crashing this wedding, you better be funny. And I was like, that is the best wedding sign I've ever seen in my life. And nothing's ever topped it. If you're crashing this wedding, you better be funny. They took something that was normal, right? A wedding sign, and made it totally them, 100% them. As far as your ceremony is concerned, writing personal vows, which sounds really overwhelming. We just found out about Providence that has like a vow builder though, which I actually should probably try to see if I can get in there and test it for myself, because I would love to see how that works. But they literally build a vow for you. And it's still personal, it's still written by yourself for your fiance, but at least you're not writing it from scratch. And then changing out the music for your ceremony is a great way to make that unique. We walked into, at least my wedding party walked into an acoustic version of You're the One That I Want from Grease. I die. Every time I hear it, I die. I love that song. And then our exit song, our grand exit song, we love Singing in the Rain. So our grand exit song, or not grand exit, but our ceremony exit song was Fizz a Fiddle. Fit as a fiddle, ready for love, la, 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 la. You won't know what I'm singing if you haven't seen it. But I've never seen anyone walk out to that song. And that was super important to us, and it was super personal. So we took 2 classic movies that we loved and found a way to incorporate those into our event. Another thing is our grand entrance song into the reception was Du Hast by Rammstein. Because my husband loves them. So take what is already on the list of things to do and make it funky. Change your table names. Do unique signage. Make sure you incorporate songs that you actually like. Maybe your intro music, like when people are starting to filter in before the ceremony starts, isn't Violin String Quartet. There's nothing wrong with them. We love them. It's such an easy playlist to just click go on. But maybe it's Frank Sinatra. Like that is a totally different vibe that we're setting here. Or maybe it's ska covers, acoustic covers of ska music. I don't even know if that's a thing. I'm just like pulling music information out. A couple I know did, instead of boutonnieres, they did the bottle caps like in the movie Up. Actually, this is one of the most unique weddings I think I've ever been to because the groom composed the song that the bride walked down the aisle to. Because their first date, they went to see the movie Up. So he wrote the song for her to walk down the aisle to, which sounded like very reminiscent of the song from the movie Up. The boutonnieres were bottle caps, like the little pin that they do in the movie, but they were differentiated by their favorite drinks. So it could have been beer, could have been a soda, super cute. So I don't think anyone's going to be like composing music, but you can get funky with it. So hopefully those are enough ideas to kind of unlock ways to make it unique, right? We do have a video coming out for like unique unification, ceremony unification ideas in a couple weeks. So make sure you've got the notification bell turned on over on YouTube for when that comes out. Oh, good. I'm glad you found this helpful, Melanie. You are so very welcome. Well, guys, that ends our chat for today. Thank you so much for being here. I hope you found that helpful. If you did, you could always leave a video review and let me know how that felt for you. Well, that was a weird way of phrasing that. This is why I'm not allowed to sell things. This is why the team's like, hey, Jamie, can we maybe have someone else talk about the product? I'm like, that's fine. That's a good idea. I think we should do that.